How are you?
Good. It's a sunny day here in Colorado, and I'm just manning the phones. I've got 5 radio interviews today, so that's always good talking to people.
Absolutely. It's nice when people want to talk to you, I'm sure, in your line of business.
Well, yeah, I found it interesting. I do know some people that don't like doing this, including some of my bandmates.
Right.
Actually, kind of like doing this.
Awesome. And especially when you have something as incredible to talk about as Scourge of the Light.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem at all. You guys had a heck of a time getting up to the album release.
Oh, we did. It was, we had been on Century Media for years, and they had wanted us to do a live album, and we wanted to do a live album, but the budget just wasn't there, and I don't blame them. They're trying to run a business, and we've never been a big seller, so
right.
We went back and forth for years just trying to figure out how to do a live album for the budget we had. And then Chris went to Megadeth, which, you can't blame him for that. I mean, that's a huge career move for him, and so we're, one hand, it set us back a little bit, but the guy's like a brother to me, so I had to be happy for him to join Megadeth. So then we brought Christian in and worked on a live set with him. And then finally we were at a point where we thought we could start working on the new album, and so the SPV deal fell into our laps, and that's been working out pretty good so far.
That's awesome. Had you started working on the new stuff prior to the release from Century Media, or were you still kind of hoping that you'd be able to figure out how to do a live album at that point?
Well, I had some stuff. I had some songs on the back burner, and I ended up scrapping probably 95% of it. I scrapped everything, but the song Setting of the Sun, some of the verse parts to that song were from something I've had for years. But otherwise, I just started everything from scratch. A lot of the stuff I'd written, after hearing it for a few years, on my demo computer, it just started to sound just a little old and stale. And so we really started everything from scratch. I guess it was about a year and a half ago that we started writing for this album. Gotcha.
Did having Christian come back to the band, did that affect the writing?
Oh, definitely. It's important to me for everybody in the band to contribute to the songs. They may not be the actual writer, but I really want them to contribute their sound and style. And Christian actually is a writer, and he's a very good songwriter. And he's just got a great sense of melody. So he really brought that to the songs and to the lead guitar playing. So, yeah, I would say his stamp is all over the record.
Awesome. And did you now? Had you guys stayed in touch over the years? Is that how he ended up coming back to the band?
Yeah, we did stay in touch. We try to have a good relationship with all the ex-band members, and the music scene in Colorado, particularly for heavy metal, is pretty small and close-knit.
Right.
So, yeah, everybody, I think, pretty much keeps in contact with everyone else. We're a friendly scene here.
Excellent. Well, that's good to hear. It's nice to hear when the scene is friendly and not a bunch of backbiting and sniping all the time.
There's just not a big audience here, and I think people learned years ago that everything works smoother if you cooperate.
Right.
Than when you try to be cutthroat with one another.
Definitely. When you guys do write for an album, do you do everything kind of on your own and then bring ideas to the jam room sort of thing, or do you guys set aside a time and say, all right, we have to get together on such and such a day and night, and we're going to hammer out half a song?
Well, we do everything on our own, and then it's Christian and I will each do everything on our own, and we'll record our own demos. Everything, drum parts, bass parts, and then we'll send it out to the other guys, and they will typically just get rid of everything we did and just redo it.
Right.
And a lot of times they push the envelope. I had sent some of the songs for this album to our drummer, and he just changed the feel and everything of the song. He just wrote some great drum parts, but it caused me to rework a lot of my guitar parts, to try to make them better. And we do that a lot with vocals too. Our vocalist Harry will add his parts to it, and then he'll just make it better or take it in another direction. So yeah, it really starts with one guy writing, but it quickly becomes a collaborative effort.
Right.
as far as actually getting together to rehearse and write, we haven't done that since we were kids. Actually, we haven't even rehearsed for an album in probably 10 years.
Oh, wow.
12 years. We usually rehearse in hotel rooms before a gig. And I don't recommend that to any bands except that we were up together. We all have known each other since we were kids.
Right.
There's a time period back in the 80s where we went 18 months without missing one day of rehearsal. We rehearsed Christmas, rehearsed every day. So, we're in a unique situation where we're all pretty tight with each other. We could not play together for a year and then get together and it'll click within minutes.
Right. I guess, yeah, if you've played with each other enough and you know each other enough kind of off stage, you can do a quick look to the left or look to the right and pretty much gauge what the person's going to do next. Yeah,
exactly.
When you guys are doing your recording for albums and stuff, do you all go in at the same time, or are you doing, even with that, are you doing parts here and there?
Yeah, it's all separately, which, it's, to this date, it scares some of my band members because they really don't know what to expect until the end. For this album, we did drums first, which is, that is so demanding, but I just have such faith in our drummer, Rickard. He's just a great drummer, and he's really schooled, and he just knows what he's doing. So what we did once we had final arrangements of the songs is Christian and I recorded real stripped-down versions of guitar parts, but that were played really, really tight. And the reason we did stripped down is because we wanted Rickard, we wanted to do drums first, and we wanted to give him lots of space to explore and do anything he wanted on the drums. So yeah, he went in and knocked out all the drum parts in 3 days just by himself.
Wow. So there's nobody kind of sitting around overseeing the whole process, like that's spending all day, every day in the studio, making sure that everybody's kind of towing the line, I guess.
To some extent, I did that. I was there for half the drum sessions. We recorded drums down in Phoenix, so I flew down for about half of them. But really, I was just there to answer questions. Rickard would say, is that repeating a bridge right there? And I'd say yes. Or he'd say, is this supposed to be a fade out here? And I would say, no, that's just a really long chorus. So I was there for questions like that.
Right.
And I was there for all the vocals, just because I had to run the equipment. And Christian recorded lead guitar and bass at his studio. So everybody was pretty much on their own, unless they needed another band member to run the gear.
Right. Wow, that sounds like definitely a very unique situation you guys have going for writing and recording.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but you do what you have to do. And
right.
We're just in a unique situation where we could pull it off.
Right. It's not like you guys are all 18, 19-year-old kids anymore. There's families and other demands that definitely need to be met outside of JAG Panzer these days.
Oh, definitely. And it's a balancing act. I mean, I don't want to sacrifice any family time at all. So it's balancing act to try to make it work, and that's something everybody in the band goes through.
Yeah, for sure. You guys have been together since the mid-'80s, the early '80s actually, and you've obviously seen a whole lot of changes in the music industry. What do you think is the one that's affected you guys the most?
What's affected us the most, I think, is, illegal downloading, file sharing, and, I get it. People want to hear new bands. I mean, I did tape trading in the 80s, but the difference now is, I'm always having people telling me, well, that doesn't really hurt the bands, but what people don't understand is when the recording industry, when income is down so low as a whole, record companies start cutting back, and they cut back on recording budgets, but then they also cut back on tour support. So, it just makes it much more difficult to record an album, and it makes it considerably more difficult to go out and play live.
Right.
And so that's, it's sort of distressing. It just gives us one more thing that we have to try to make work somehow, but, we always roll with it and, try to make it work.
Fair enough. Now, I know that a lot of bands now and I think I've seen you say this before as well, is that a lot of bands are making their living as a band more or less off of merch sales, T-shirt sales, that sort of thing. Did you guys? I didn't see it for this, but did you guys have any sort of pre-release packages for Scourge of the Light?
You know, we've got tons of merch here, so if anybody listening needs Scourge of the Light T-shirts, call me. But no, we didn't do any. You know, this was our first record with SPV, and I didn't want to step on any toes. I didn't want to offer anything with the band, you know, any kind of fan package CD, and then take away from retailers here,
right?
You know, especially like mom and pop shops. I wanted to see how things went with this first release. I do think that's really cool when bands do that, though. I've seen some bands, you know, you get a T-shirt and maybe a poster and a CD all for one price. I mean, I think that's really cool, and it's creative that the bands are doing things like that.